Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. If this is your first time watching one of my videos, then welcome. If you've watched some of my videos in the past, then welcome back. Today, I'm going to be reading some interesting Reddit stories while I play around in my Minecraft realm. So sit back, relax, and enjoy. If you have a story that you want me to read and react to, feel free to send it to the email located in the description below. Without further ado, let's get into some stories. One more thing, actually. Minecraft question for you guys. The first part of this playthrough that you're going to see, I'm actually in search of my horse. I logged off of my realm on my horse, and when I logged back in, I respawned at my bed location and lost all of my stuff. So, can you die if you log out on a horse? Just wondering. My buddy did say he found my stuff, so I'm assuming I did die, and he didn't have enough storage, so he just put it in a chest. So in the beginning, I'm going to be trying to find that chest, and also trying to find my horse. So let me know. I didn't know that was a thing, but I guess it is. All right, guys, let's go ahead and get into some stories. The first story we will get into is titled, I Don't Trust My Girlfriend to Prepare Food or Drink for Me Anymore. For background, my girlfriend, female, 33, and I, male, 34, have been living together for 11 months. I was working on a project down south when I met her, and we did long distance for a few months. She was down there living with an old college roommate and was struggling to find work. At the time, she was unemployed and the job market down south sucked. I offered to let her move in with me because the job market was much better where I lived, a couple states north, and we wouldn't have to do long distance anymore. After she moved up here, I bought a used car for her to use, and she did find a job at a call center for a bit. For the last 6 months, she's been unemployed, and I have supported her. Over the last 3 months, the relationship has devolved to the point where we are constantly fighting. After giving her an ultimatum, she finally got a new job that started this week. Last week, I got a Ring camera, and she was very upset by this invasion of privacy, etc. I should have asked, but it's been helpful with coordinating grocery deliveries and making me feel more secure overall. We fought about it and went to bed. The next morning, I come down and she has a coffee ready for me on the table. I look into the coffee and there is something floating on the top. To my disgust, I discover that she had spat a loogie of snot into my morning coffee. I immediately confronted her about it, and she denied it before eventually saying something along the lines of, if I did it, you know why. I told her it was time for her to leave. Initially, I had told her she had to pack and leave immediately, but I ended up walking that back because she had nowhere else to go. No family and no nearby friends. Despite my extreme disgust, I couldn't make her homeless. I told her to clean up the guest room and move her stuff into it. She did, but then came into my room early the next morning because she can't/is afraid to sleep in there alone. I mostly just ignored her and kept to myself. She tried to mend fences with me by cooking dinner a few days later, but when I looked at the food she had cooked, all I could think about was the ball of snot in my coffee. Last night, while trying to get some sleep, I couldn't stop thinking about what else she might have done to my food. I told her she needed to move back into the guest room. I've never been in a situation like this before. Am I putting myself in jeopardy by allowing her to stay? I'm not sure if this relationship is recoverable or if I should try. Edit. I had a talk with her when she came back from church. She just started attending. She wouldn't acknowledge her actions at first, but I persisted. She's upset that I'm throwing away a year of our lives, but not overly emotional about it. I told her she's got to figure out how to get along on her own now. I'm trying to be as fair but as firm as possible. She asked to stay until her first paycheck from her new job comes in, but I don't feel I can risk her staying around. That is the end of our story. So I get that people make mistakes and things happen, here or there, and people get in arguments, but she intentionally set out a coffee for you and put her own snot in it. Like, blew her nose in your coffee, dude. There is absolutely no way that I would let her stay in my house. I really like the top comment on this post. People make mistakes. Intentionally spitting in your coffee is not a mistake. It's vindictive and hateful approach when you're losing an argument. This will 100% happen again, not necessarily the coffee. The vindictive and hate-filled approach will. I 100% agree with that. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments below, but let's go ahead and dive into another story. I'm proud to say that our next story is our first subscriber story from a subscriber that has been here since it seems like day one. So shout out to System Z1 underscore GD. I really appreciate you reaching out for the kind words that you always provide me in the comments section. And let's go ahead and jump into the story that you sent over. I wanted to tell you a funny story of something that happened to me in school. Basically, last year in high school, I was taking an earth science class, and I sat in the far back with one of my best friends and one of the most annoying guys I've ever met. Since I was naturally a quiet person last year and a tad bit insecure with myself, I'm naturally skinny. I used to let people push me around a little bit, though luckily my school had no real bullies. The annoying guy, let's just call him Bob because I genuinely don't care about what his real name was also the worst student I've ever met, skipping almost every assignment, every test, and barely even showing up to school at all. Each day, he found some way to rage bait me, and while I personally didn't care, my best friend, the guy who sat next to me, let's call him Fred, had ADHD and it made him struggle to focus on his own work. I do not let people mess with my friends whatsoever. We had an important test. I think it was the midterm or quarterfinal on a Monday, and Bob actually showed up for once after skipping the last few weeks straight, and maybe he needed this test. I think he finished the year with about a 20% in the class, so it didn't help anyways. Right before the test, Bob was stressing Fred out right in front of me, so I did something about it. Right now, on a YouTube video, it might sound really cringe, but at that time in person, it was an insane aura farming moment. LOL. Bob was poking Fred's arm with a pencil to check answers on a practice test taken before the real one. Copy off Fred. I turned to him and said, Bob, leave Fred alone. Unlike you, he cares about his work and actually wants a life in the future. You rely on us for answers, and I hope you're smart enough to not lose the only chance you have at passing this class. So that section in the back of the class where we were went absolutely quiet. Bob looks embarrassed and gave some weak excuse before leaving entirely. Like he literally walked past the teacher at the door, grabbed his backpack, and probably left the school. As for Fred, I know he got a perfect score on the midterm. He's a really good test taker, and I think I got a 94 or 96 on it, which was fine by me. So overall, good riddance. Since Bob also never showed up again, I got to use the seat as an extra space for my backpack so I could get my laptop and play games after finishing my work. I think in the end, I did a justifiable thing. I stood up for my friend. Ever since then, I've also become a little less shy and much more confident, so I'm happy. And that story is now over. So, System Z1, I just want to say thank you again for sending your story over. It means a lot, and I always appreciate you tuning in to my videos. No, I think, in my opinion, standing up for your friend, no matter what you said, just standing up for him in general is an insane aura farming moment. No, but that's awesome. I really like this story. I feel like it's a really wholesome story, also funny. But yeah, you didn't let this Bob guy mess with your friend Fred. You held it down for him. It was a old story I read, but you stood on business, you could say. Anyway, that's a really, really good story. Happy that you stood up for your buddy Fred. Happy that you both passed the tests. And hopefully Bob can lock in in the future and maybe actually have a better life. But anyway, thanks again, System Z1. I really appreciate it. And let's go ahead and dive into another story. The next story that we're going to dive into is on r/ghost stories and is titled The Scariest Ghost Story of My Life. Every single house I have ever lived in since I was a small child has had some form of experience to the extent that when I moved in with my current partner, they were more of a skeptic in the sense that they just didn't have any real experiences. It's not that they didn't believe me, they had just never seen anything themselves. Now, if the topic comes up, they then tell people they full heartedly believe in the paranormal ever since I moved in with them. My first story is pretty short and simple. My dad never believed my mom and I when we would tell him what we would see and hear things in the house. He was a very stubborn and quiet man. Even if he did see something, he wouldn't tell you, or he would deny it, except for one day. He was outside mowing the yard and he came onto the porch looking white as a ghost. He asked me to leave and go to my room. That night, I asked my mother what had happened, and she said that while my dad was mowing, he turned around and saw what he could only describe as the Grim Reaper coming at him. It rushed through his entire body and completely debilitated him. He never would talk about it past that point. I've never seen him look that way in my entire life. Years later, when I moved in with my partner, my biological mother had passed away. I was not close with her when she was alive, but she would frequently tell me when she died that she was going to haunt me because she hated me. Okay, first off, that's crazy work. Anyways, let's jump back into the story. I kept that to myself for many years. One morning, around 3 a.m., my boyfriend is getting ready for work, and he rushes into the bedroom to tell me that when he stepped in the hallway at the very end stood what looked exactly like my mother, and it ran full speed at him and disappeared into our towel closet. Just a few short weeks afterward, I took a photo of my boyfriend, and there was a figure standing behind him that looked exactly like my mother. He said when he would wake up to get ready for work, he would hear whispers. Our knife drawer specifically would open, and the knives would be all over the floor. At one point, one even flew off the counter towards me while I was cooking. There was no way for that to happen. I have so many stories. That story is now over. All right. The mom thing is crazy work. If I woke up and my wife's like mom that had passed away was like standing there and then ran full speed at me and then dodged into some closet, my house would be on the market by the end of the day. There would be no way I'm staying there. What the heck? And the knife thing after that is crazy. If I saw that again, there is going to be a for sale sign in the front yard by the end of the night. By the end of the day, like count me out, dude. Oh, so many stories. I'm fortunate not to have like any. I mean, I have one, but other than that, really crazy ghost stories like that. I do like reading them, but that story actually like gave me chills. The mom thing running into the towel closet, that gave me chills, I can't lie. But let me know what you guys think down below. But crazy story. Let's go ahead and dive into another story. Our next story is titled Gave My Notice. Boss offended I didn't give her a heads up about applying elsewhere. I, 27 female, have been with my current company for 3 years. I've known since early on that it's a toxic work environment with extremely high turnover. But my department has been relatively stable and I like my coworkers. I feel like I've done all that I can to make things work over the past 3 years. The hours are awful and it's fully in person. But I've dealt with it. I outgrew my first position, so instead of looking for a job elsewhere, I found a new path internally that was a much better fit. However, it's come with much higher responsibility. Our team is small, and my boss and I are the only ones who do our particular job. She's always overwhelmed, and everything I've done has been in service to her. The problem is, I've never gotten a raise. Once I moved into my new role, I didn't get a raise. I didn't ask, which I understand I should have, but my company is also a very much take on responsibility now, prove yourself, and then we'll see if you're worth more money type of place. Back in January, 2.5 years after I started, and about a year into the new role, I finally asked to be properly compensated at baseline for my role. We're talking a $15,000 difference here. My boss was on board, but it's July now, and the process has been grinding on with no end in sight. The updates I get are, we're working on it. Note, it's out of my direct boss's hands and in the hands of our department's director and HR. At this point, it's well known that I have been waiting and that the process has been utterly ridiculous. I started applying for jobs and secured an incredible position at a huge, well known company in the area. It's hybrid and actually fully staffed, and my salary will be more than $13,000 than I even asked my current company for. That's a total of a $28,000 increase. I told my boss the other day, and her reaction floored me. First thing she said was, "You could have given me a heads up." She went on and on about how I know that if I just told her I was applying for jobs, she wouldn't have fired me and it would have given her time to find a higher level replacement. She's going on maternity leave in a few months. She took offense that I didn't talk to her on a personal level. She said she would have pushed harder for my raise, like she would have pushed our director or HR, I guess, or that we could have worked out a hybrid situation. My company is very strict about in person, so I don't understand how this would have been possible. She even said, "Well, now I'm effed." My only defense was telling her I didn't think it was customary to tell your boss you're looking for a new job. She kept saying, "But it's me. You know I wouldn't have fired you." She even took a jab at me by bringing up that I should have asked for a raise when I first made the job switch. She said, "And you never asked for a raise before this?" Hmm. She's always had a negative attitude and a way of blaming people. Needless to say, I rejected attempts at a counteroffer. I feel crazy. Please tell me it's not customary to give a heads up that you want to leave. Any and all advice is welcome. That is the end of our story. No, in my opinion, it is absolutely not customary to give a heads up that you want to leave, especially if it's not leaving the not even just leaving the department, it's like leaving the company altogether. Absolutely not. If I was looking outside of a job, like outside of a company, I would definitely not say anything. Not that I am, but I would not say that. You keep it to yourself until you've landed the position. And that's exactly what, at least that's what I would do in my opinion. And that's exactly what the OP did. She waited until she got a great job offer, a $28,000 increase. Crazy work. That's awesome for her. And then she took the job. And like she said, they offered hybrid, but her company seems very strict about in person, so not sure how that would work. And B, she asked for a raise, and it's allegedly been in the works for months and months and months. At a certain point, you just have to cut it off and cut your losses. And it sounds like that's what the OP did. She cut her losses with her current employer, said, "You know what? I know I'm going to be worth more to someone else." And luckily she did. She found that position with a new company making $28,000 more annually. That is awesome. I really resonate with the first comment. It says, "It's not customary to tell your boss that you want to leave or give them a heads up. You aren't even required to give a notice." They fire people all the time without notices and over BS reasons. So we have the right to quit. It goes both ways. Even if she gave you a raise, it wouldn't compare to the raise you get by leaving. Just focus on your new job and forget about her. She seems like a terrible manager and person. And I agree. You don't have to tell them you're leaving, and you don't also have to give them a notice. A notice is a nice thing to do. I would always do it, but it sounds like she did as well. But yeah, even if you stayed, it doesn't sound like the raise that they would give you would even equate to the raise. I mean, they had said a $15,000 raise, but this one's $13,000 on top of that. So shoot, I would be out the door too for $28,000 more. I think most people would be. But anyways, let's go ahead and dive into another story. Our next story is actually our second subscriber story, and I just wanted to give a quick shout out to Micah. Micah, I really appreciate you sending your story over for me to read today. Alright, let's go ahead and get into his story. Micah's story is titled, "My Mom's Friend." When I was about 10 years old, my mom introduced me to Marvin. At first, he seemed like a pretty chill dude. He liked anime, gaming, and all that stuff.
A few months after I first met him, my mom said he was going to stay at our house for a while. I was like, okay, this shouldn't be an issue, until it was. He would crash out over everything. I was a really emotional kid, so you can probably guess how I reacted, all angry and had snide comments. I cried. He left for a week, and I was happy. But then he came back. That's when the incident happened. About 3 days after he got back, he sent me to the convenience store. Looking back, bro, I was 10 years old. Anyway, he asked me to buy some Kool Aid. I grabbed this carrot flavored one and came back. Then he said it didn't have sugar already in it, so he sent me back to the convenience store. I came back with another one. Same thing. I had no idea how to tell if it had sugar or not, and this repeated 4 times. On the fifth trip, I just stood outside the store, wondering if I should run away. I didn't. When I finally came home with the right packet, my mom was there. I didn't tell her what happened. I just cried from the pain, and that night, oh, that night, he came into my room and stood there for what felt like a minute. Then he said, "Don't wake your sister up." My heart was racing. He raised his hand and he hit me hard 13 times. When he was done, he said, "Maybe learn to respect me more." The next morning, I accidentally tripped over his PC wire and it fell. I think the screen broke. Not totally sure. My mom came out, and long story short, he called me a bleep. It's funny. I'll leave that word up to the reader's imagination. That was the last straw. My mom kicked him to the curb. I still think about that sometimes. The last time I heard, he got fired, and apparently his boss called him a bleep too. Karma, lol. And then, Micah, you had some nice words to say about my content, so I really appreciate you. But that story is now over. So, my thoughts. I am so happy that your mom did the right thing in the end and kicked this man out. He sounds like a man child. First off, you were 10 years old and he sent you to the convenience store by yourself. That just seems like a kidnapping waiting to happen. And he didn't do it once, he didn't do it twice, 3 times, four. He did it 5 separate times. That is crazy to me. I would have never been able to do that at that age as well, at 10 years old. Heck no. And then, for him to come into your room and hit you 13 times, that is just crazy. And then, honestly, it sounds like he got a little bit of karma by you knocking his PC over and the screen breaking. Hopefully it did. I know you said you weren't sure, but hopefully it did. And I'm happy that your mom did the right thing and kicked him out. That is great. And it's also great to hear that you had an update and he got fired from his job. And he sounds like a real bum, to say it nicely. He's a bum. But Micah, again, thank you for the story. I really appreciate it. Guys, let me know what you think of Micah's story down in the comments. Alrighty, let's go ahead and get into another story. So, the next story that we are going to dive into is titled The Man in the Drawer. I, 33 male, was putting my 3-year-old daughter to bed a few months ago. She was standing in the corner of the room as I was getting her into her pajamas when all of a sudden she shouted, "No," and then shot the opposite corner of the room and hid behind her cot. It really startled me, and I asked her what was wrong, and she said, "I don't like going in there because it's scary." I asked her where, and she said, "The corner, there," and pointed at her drawers. I asked her why, and she replied, "Because there's a man in the drawer." She also said she doesn't like him because he's cross. That was all a bit strange, and I asked her some more questions after this. I recorded that last bit too because I know my sister would be interested. She's very much a believer. Since then, we decided not to bring him up ourselves because we didn't want to make it worse in case it was just her imagination. However, she was bringing him up herself. She said to my partner that he sometimes comes and strokes my face and wakes me up. And just a few days ago, she told my partner that he told her to go away because he lives here. She's also repeated that he sometimes gets cross, so we told her to tell him this is her house and he needs to go away. We have our theory about who it could be, as we know that an old couple used to live here before the family we bought the home from. Our neighbors were friends with them, a retired couple, and they said the woman was called Annie, and we can't remember his name. What we do know is that he lost his legs in the military, then died a while before she died. They then cared for her until she eventually died too. We aren't sure where or how he died, but we could question our neighbors as they are really open about them. I guess I'm posting this to understand people's thoughts on this. I'm not a believer myself. I've had a couple of odd experiences in my life, but they can all be explained scientifically. So can this as well, as this is the age where kids develop their creativity through imagination and playing. I guess what's different is that she hasn't exposed or said anything scary or creepy in any way, and we've been really careful about that. Anyway, let me know what you all think. Also, happy to post the audio if this gains any traction. That is the end of our story. All right, I would be getting new drawers. I would be getting my child new drawers if she was saying there was a man in the drawer and having all these things to say about this man in the drawer. It's weird that it sounds like the OP hasn't let the child experience any like scary or creepy things. Like she hasn't been exposed to any of that. So it's weird that she is bringing this stuff up on her own. But then again, kids have crazy imaginations. So maybe this is just her imagining something and she's letting her parents know. But let me know what you guys think. That's interesting. I'm not sure how to really feel about that. I'm not sure if I have any advice or really any suggestions on what I would do. I would probably just get new drawers. I think that's what I would do. Alrighty, guys. I think that is going to do it for me today. I really appreciate you tuning in and listening to these stories while I play a little bit in my Minecraft world. If you like this video and want to see me keep posting more videos like this, please leave a like, subscribe, and leave a comment if you'd like. Anyways, I just wanted to say and kind of end this with a little bit of appreciation with you guys, especially if you've made it this far in my video. You know, I started this just over a month ago, and I know I've been saying this in the last few videos, but I really just want to keep saying how much I appreciate you guys listening to my videos. It means a ton. I really hope that we can keep making videos like this and spending more time together, you guys listening to these stories, because I love making these videos. If there's any way that I can make these videos better for you guys, please let me know down in the comments. I strive to make each and every video a little bit better than the one prior. So like I said, your suggestions really help me and giving me new ideas and helping me be a little bit more creative with my videos. So if there's anything that I can do to make these videos better for you, please feel free to let me know in the comments below. But I really do love you guys. I really appreciate it so much, you guys tuning in. It truly means the world to me. And I'll catch you guys in the next one. Alright guys, peace.